I use a stunning color-coded calendar which is completely full because of how busy I am. I've time-tracked my entire life. I know how long it takes me to go to the toilet to the millisecond. And just look at my Notion setup. It's so intricate, it would take me at least 10 videos to explain it to you. And let's not forget my bullet journal. It's a piece of art. Forget Ali Abdaal and Matt Diavella. I am a productivity machine with my productivity system. And I'm going to help you to become just as productive as me. Okay, so let's talk about productivity. I am obviously not a productivity guru. If anything, I would actually say that I'm more of a recovering productivity addict. But I reached a certain point where I realized that I was spending more time trying to figure out how to be productive than I was actually being productive. And if you're watching this video, you're probably procrastinating on whatever it is that you should be doing right now by watching another productivity video. Now, I'm not here to hate on productivity. I actually think having the right systems can make a huge difference in our life. As well as helping us to get more done, the right productivity system can help us to feel less overwhelmed, which as an overthinker is something that I really value. The thing is, I've grown to value something else over time, and that's simplicity. So I want to break down my simple productivity system, which helps me to get things done for my full-time job and YouTube, balance multiple projects without getting overwhelmed, and have a life outside of work and YouTube. And at the end of this video, I will also share 3 things that I think are really important to remember when you're building your own productivity system. So the first part of my productivity system is to-do lists and a note-taking system, and for this I use a notebook. I've used so many things in the past to take notes, like Notion, Evernote, Apple Notes, but I think especially when I'm overwhelmed, I always come back to physical pen and paper. For me personally, I do find that I think more clearly on paper, I write a lot faster, I'm more likely to remember things, and I like that I don't have to rely on having a device on me all day. The main thing for me is just having somewhere where I can capture any thoughts, ideas, to-do, tasks, just anything. I used to use a much nicer notebook, but when you have a nice notebook, you have the pressure to keep it organized and looking nice. This notebook I found around the flat, it already had pages that were filled, and I mean, just take a look at it now. This notebook is chaos. But why is it chaos? Because my brain is chaos. I want to take that chaos from my brain and throw it somewhere so my brain doesn't have to store it. So what do I use this notebook for? Anything and everything, to be honest. There's not a whole lot of structure here, sorry to disappoint. I don't have nice pretty pages to show you. In fact, you can see how messy my handwriting is because I'm really not interested in making this look nice. I just want it to work for me. It's kind of like you walking into this immaculate house and you're wondering if anyone actually lives there or if it's just like a museum.
Did you get Monica's authorization to move all of her stuff?
And if someone is really using it and is really living there, it means that in order to maintain that immaculate state, they have to constantly tidy up.
The end table is wrong, the couch looks bizarre, and don't even get me started on the refrigerator magnets.
And this is how I see productivity systems. Yes, I can have this really immaculate looking system, but if I'm going to make really good use of it, it's going to be messy and it's going to need maintenance to keep it immaculate. And I don't want to commit more time to planning. I'd rather get things done and free up my time so I can go outside or watch a movie. So let me show you some examples of how I use this notebook. At the start of the week, I make a big brain dump of all the things that I need to do for my job on one page and everything I need to do for YouTube underneath it or on the next page. As the week goes along, I always have this page open so I can cross things out when they're done or add to this list if anything urgent comes up in the week. When it's a new week, I look back at the list from the week before to see if there's anything that I didn't complete and add it to the new list if I still need to do it. I'll also use this notebook to make any lists of specific shots I need for a filming day for YouTube. I jot things like errands I need to run, and I also use this notebook if I want to have a brainstorm session. But even though I do use this notebook for most of my note-taking and task management, I still use Apple Notes for a few things. So I use it for my shopping list and packing list, and I also have notes to capture ideas like YouTube videos. To be honest, I don't use this very often. I only have it as a backup in case I'm out and quickly want to capture something or can't be asked to go onto Notion. And speaking of Notion, the second part of my productivity system is organizing and planning projects. So the way I see it is a project is anything that's a little bit more long-term. So for example, I use my notebook to make a list of footage that I need for a single YouTube video, but I plan out all of my videos with Notion because I need to be able to get a good overview of everything I'm doing because I'm constantly looking ahead. I'm not going to do a whole entire Notion setup because I feel like that's a whole video in itself, but I just wanted to talk about how my priorities with Notion have changed. I used to love having the idea of having a personal dashboard which looked nice and made for a good homepage. I also loved the idea of organizing my entire life into one place. I used to think that this was simplicity, but in reality, it was just more work. It meant that I had to take an extra step to get to what I wanted, which was my YouTube planner, as that's what I predominantly use Notion for. So now I've made my content board a part of my main dashboard, and I have tabs that are most relevant to the things that I do most often. So I have a tab for what I'm currently working on and things like my YouTube board and calendar, as I need easy access to these things. Notion is great and I'm still a massive fan of it, but rather than making it this perfectly neat and put together system, I'm prioritizing my needs. I also want to quickly show you what I do for my job. As I mentioned before, in my notebook, I make a to-do list of everything I need to do for that week. But then I take that list and I assign all of the to-dos to each day of the week. Now, I only do this for work, I don't do it for any other area of my life, and there's two reasons why I do this. The first is, as a team, we share what we're up to on each day of the week. So if I've done this on a Monday, I can easily copy and paste my to-dos onto our work Slack channel. The second reason is it's also easier for me to plan meetings if I know what my week is going to look like. But the reason I prefer just having a to-do list rather than a schedule like this is because I'm more focused on my output than I am trying to have this perfect schedule. Next up, we have the calendar. When I first started working full-time after working part-time for so long, I was really overwhelmed by juggling my job with YouTube. I thought that the best way to counteract this was to track my time and just time block my entire calendar. But I actually found this more overwhelming because suddenly I had so much more to look at. So now I see things very differently. I don't treat my calendar as a blank surface to pile events onto. I think of it as a ledger of how many times I've traded my time away. The emptier my calendar is, the happier and less overwhelmed I am. I now only use my calendar for meetings, and I've actually told my team that I like to have as few meetings as possible in the week. Whenever I do have meetings, I also try to cluster them together so that they're just taking up one morning or one afternoon. I also try to keep meetings to just Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I like to have Tuesdays and Thursdays as my focus days. So these are days where I have no meetings and I can just be really focused and really creative, and it just helps me to feel less overwhelmed. Calendar blocking is personally not for me. I just don't enjoy creating blocks of time for things like exercise or YouTube. I like to see my time as overall being free, so I can just decide in that moment what I want to be doing based on how I'm feeling or what my energy's like. Finally, the last part of my productivity system is routines. Routines are honestly the cornerstone of productivity for me. I have a morning routine, an evening routine, a lunchtime routine, a Monday routine, a walking home from the office routine. I probably do go a bit over the top with routines, but I just find that it really does help. They honestly just make me feel so much more mentally free. I'm doing all of the things that I want to do, but in this automated way. It means that I'm creative, but it also means that I'm getting more done without having to procrastinate because I'm just flowing along to it. I also find that I limit my social media and phone use a lot more because I know when I'm going to use it. I never use my phone in the mornings, and I only use it at lunchtime and on my way back home, which is when I call my family. So that's my system. It's not aesthetic and it's not cool, not even in that nerdy cool way, but it works, and that's the main thing. And with that in mind, here are 3 pieces of advice that I think you should remember when you're building your own productivity system. You won't find your right productivity system in a YouTube video. You have to find what works for you. Try lots of different things and just try to reflect. Do you work better in the mornings or at night? Do you feel better if you do harder tasks first, or do you need to do the easier ones first to build momentum? Are you someone who needs pen and paper, or do you prefer keeping everything in one place? Do you work better in short bursts, or do you need to get lost in a state of flow? Focus on if you're actually getting things done or just sitting there admiring a nice system. Your system might require a bit of time to set up, which is fine, but it should be an investment that rewards in freeing up more mental energy and time in the future. If it's not doing that, it's not a productivity system, it's a form of procrastination. You don't have to stick to one productivity system forever. I've been trying to find what works for me for what feels like a really long time, but something that I've come to realize is that my needs are constantly changing. So you might have a new project at work, which is going to cause a big shift to your schedule and to your routines. You might have an event coming up which requires more planning. Or you might have set yourself some new goals and new habits that you might want to incorporate more habit tracking into your productivity system. The world of productivity is filled with lots of advice and methods. Some of it's good, some of it's bad, and some of it's completely toxic. But productivity shouldn't be overwhelming. It's meant to help us. It's meant to help us manage the chaos and help us to get things done without feeling overwhelmed. So don't worry about what it looks like. Focus on how it feels.